apologize for some technical challenges, but thank you very, very much for being with us here on a dreary and rainy Friday afternoon. My name is Erin Lourie, and I am the head of adult audiences at Hillwood Estate Museum and Gardens. We are looking forward to reopening our doors this Saturday. That is tomorrow at long last. I hope that those of you who are in the DC area will come and join us. February is one of the most magnificent times to be at Hillwood. It is when our collections team has just finished their deep clean. Everything is extra sparkly. And since it is a little dreary and rainy today, you will also have Hillwood mostly to yourselves. So I hope that we will see you all at Hillwood soon. But we're so thrilled to be celebrating Winter Wonderland here with Ami Wilber, who is Hillwood's floral and event decor designer. Ami joined Hillwood in 2016, and I know based on the names here on Zoom, we have many folks who have been with her for our virtual floral workshops over the last 2 years. When Ami, as we go along, please feel free to submit questions into the chat. That's where I'll be monitoring them and posing them to Ami as we go through our demonstration today. At the very end, I'll issue an invitation to anybody who has been following along at home and is interested to please turn on your cameras so that we can share your beautiful arrangements with everyone who is here with us today. Without further ado, I will turn us over to Ami.
Great, thank you, Erin, and welcome everyone, and happy Lunar New Year and happy regular New Year for all of you as well. We are excited to start our first of our virtual floral programs. And today, because it is winter, although today it didn't feel like winter at the beginning, it was like almost 60 degrees when I came into work this morning. But we wanted to do something that would kind of, I would say, reflect the atmosphere that's outside, or typically what's outside, which is usually snow. But again, today it's been rainy and almost in the 60s. But I went with the color palette of whites and blues, and we have this silver compote bowl as kind of an accent. It was funny when I was thinking up this individual program, I was thinking that, you know, it would be snowy outside and there'd be some sunlight and you would see some of those sparkles from when the sun hits the snow, which is why we went with our color palette for today. But I'm sure soon enough that will be the case for some of you, or it will also be the case for maybe us here over the next couple of weeks. So what I wanted to do for today was, again, keep it a kind of limited color palette. So that's why we just have the whites, the blue, and then our greens, and then our silver container. And we're going to do this as a one-sided-ish kind of arrangement, which means that even though it's really going to be seen from like 3/4 of the viewing perspective, the back will not be naked. So as I go through, I'm going to just go through each step. If there are questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat, and we'll stop after each moment so that you guys can either catch up, or if you have, again, questions, we can answer them there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my chicken wire and I'm going to make this into a bit of a ball. And the reason that we use chicken wire here at Hillwood is because we're trying to not use any floral foam, which is very bad for the environment, and we're trying to do things that are more sustainable. And the chicken wire is something that you can constantly reuse, and then when you're done with it, you can always recycle it into metal recycling. So what I've done is I've squishied my chicken wire into the container. And now I'm going to use some floral tape. I have clear floral tape, which I like just because you then don't see any of the tape marks. And I like to tape down my chicken wire. And I'm just going to tape it down across in both directions to make an X. And then I always take my tape and I run it along the side of the container just in case the little holding points of the tape don't quite stick, I know I have sort of a double safety. So, and you can see that I've just crisscrossed, I've shoved the chicken wire in with the tape. You can't see it in camera, but I have my container on a Lazy Susan, which I find to be very helpful to kind of get an easy perspective of my arrangement. So that way I don't have to physically move it around too much and really manhandle it and kind of let it do its own thing. Okay, so the next most important thing we're going to do is fill our container with water. I don't have anything in the water. This is just plain old tap water. But if you have any of those little floral packets of the Floral Life or whatever, definitely feel free to put those in. That would certainly help as well. But again, I never put anything into my water when I am making arrangements. All right, so without further ado, we're going to get started. So one of the things that I personally love to use is kale. So I have what's called a dinosaur kale or a Tuscan kale for you today that I'm going to use. And one of the things that I think is really fun about the kale is that it's a nice kind of leafy green. It adds a real sort of interest in terms of texture. And then also it's something that's pretty readily available that you can find at the supermarket as well. And then I also have this Italian ruscus as my other green. So I'm going to start by greening my container. And when I was going through my greens earlier, I found this lovely piece of Italian ruscus that has this beautiful natural arc to it. So again, I always love things that are going to be doing their own thing. This one's nice and sort of asymmetrical. So I'm going to have this dictate kind of the shape of the arrangement. I'm going to put this off to the back and to the side, and I'm going to make my arrangement no higher than the top of this green. And typically you want to think about 1.5 times the size of your container for how big you want it to be. And again, I'm going to use this as my sort of architectural point, so I know that I'm not going out any further than this green or any higher. I'm going to cut all of my stems, even my greens, on a nice sharp 45-degree angle. And then what I like to do is when I first start greening is I'm going to kind of weave this into the chicken wire so I get it to where I actually want it to go. And that's the one thing that's nice also about the chicken wire is you can kind of manipulate it a little bit as well. So after I get it into place, and I realize that this is just a little bit too big. It's a little ambitious for what we're doing. I'm going to just rip off these leaves. I try not to have any leaves in the water to keep it nice and fresh. So again, I'm going to cut this much shorter. I've made it a lot more short now, and I think it's going to be a little bit more manageable. Again, I'm just going to weave this in through my chicken wire. And one of the reasons that I like to green first is because, again, the chicken wire is somewhat big in terms of its opening. So when I have greens in, I'm starting to fill up some of those spaces. So I know that this is going to be my extended sort of sweeping point, and then I'm going to bring it out to about here. So I'm going to look for another piece of my ruscus. Ooh, sounds kind of fun. I don't know what's going on with this one, but I like that little shape. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to use this as the bottom point here. And so then this is now sort of sitting on the edge. And as you can see, I've got this shape that is going to be the shape of the arrangement. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go in with my kale because I have these 2 points that I'm happy with, but now I want to actually kind of green it up actually and make it so that I'm filling in sort of these large holes with the chicken wire. And again, with the kale, Well, this one's a little bit brown, so I'm not going to use that one. But with the kale, what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip the ends off of the kale as well. So again, it's more of a naked stem that's going in. And I'm going to start a little bit more towards the back and the middle to create my shape. I'm going to cut this a little bit shorter. And again, I'm pulling off a lot. It's a very long piece of kale. So for anyone who picked up materials from Hillwood today, I did not put the kale into the processing formula that I typically use for my flowers. This came straight from the cafe. So if you have any kale left over, feel free to go ahead and saute it up or eat it as you'd like. So you don't have to worry about any weird chemicals being in the kale.
Thanks, Amy. We just got a question from Sandra about how one can expect kale to hold up in an arrangement.
It will hold up for quite a while, actually. I've used it in some of my weekly arrangements, and then I've also used it for other workshops as well, and it lasts just about as long as any of the other greens.
Excellent. Thank you. And what a great question, Sandra.
And again, I'm really going to start to fill in this whole area with my kale. And again, just because I'm not necessarily going to have flowers in the back, I still want the back to not be naked, as I like to say, and I'm going to fill in this area here. So even that you were to look at the arrangement from the back, there would still be something going on back here. Okay, so I'm over a little bit. Okay, so I'm happy with what's going on with my kale for right now. So I'm going to put the kale to the side, and I'm going to start going in with my ruscus at this point. And this again, I'm going to fill in sort of the naked areas of the arrangement. And with the ruscus, sometimes what I like to do is I'm not going to use this entire branch. I'm just going to use this tip here, but I'm going to cut it at the very top section of the other piece. So now I can have two pieces and not waste this sort of bottom half of the greens. And then what I'll do with this piece that I've cut is I'll put it in towards the back so that you won't even see where that cut part of it is. And that helps to sort of extend the ruscus as well. So again, like
Althea,
this is, yep.
Sorry, Althea just asked if you have any guidance on how much kale to put in now.
I have about half of the amount of kale that I have. So it is 6. So it's like 8 actual leaves of kale.
Terrific.
And again, so you can see that this is a really long piece of ruscus. So again, I'm going to cut like right here. So that again, I have this nice piece and then I have the tip. So I'm going to take this back piece. And again, I'm going to put this into the back of my arrangement. So that if you look at the back of my arrangement, it's still full and it doesn't look naked back there.
And Amy, Maureen just asked about folks who are using alternate materials or have gathered their own supplies, whether this would be a good time for Maureen to be using her Nandia branches.
Yes. So any of the greens that you have, whether it's the kale and what we have provided, or if it's something else, right now is the time to do all of your greening for your arrangement. And again, the reason that I'm doing all of this greening is because it is the sort of open, sort of wide container. And again, the chicken wire is a little bit large in terms of the holes that it has. So I'm doing this so that once I go to put my flowers in, there's going to be less space and it'll be easier for me to manipulate the stems that go in.
Thank you.
And I'm greening this, I would say about, this looks like it's almost like 80% green. And I noticed that when I turned it around, this one is kind of wonky. So I'm going to put her back over here. Okay, so again, you can see that I have a lot of greening, and I would say that this is about 85% green. It's a little bit hard to see, but there's still some empty space in here, which I'm going to use for my focal flower. And I am going to leave the greens to the side for now, and I'm going to start using my flowers. So if there are any questions about the greening that's going on, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to move on to our flower. And today, again, we have this beautiful blue delphinium, which I love. We have white ranunculus. And then we have two different types of tulips, both white. We have our sort of regular tulip, and then we have these weird kind of funky parrot tulips. So because we're using a very almost monochromatic color scheme, except for the blue, I'm gonna go in with my blue elements first and then go in with the white elements. So what I'm gonna do with my delphinium is I really want to use this as sort of the anchor points of the arrangement. So I'm going to start from the back, and I have 5 stems of this. I'm going to use all 5 stems. And I'm going to make somewhat of a triangle. And I'll show you what I mean by that. But I have the line here. So then I want to continue this line to go down here. So this is 2 points of my triangle. I'm going to go in with my third. That's going to be here. So now I've made a triangle this way. And then I'm going to fill in this triangle down here.
And Amy, Carol just asked about how well the delphinium lasts in the arrangement.
So I have used this specific delphinium in, I would say, the last couple of arrangements that I've done for Hillwood, and they have lasted a week plus.
Terrific, thank you.
So I'm looking at my arrangement from the front, and now I have a triangle that goes this way. I have one that goes this way, and I have one that goes this way. So I want to put one more piece of my delphinium right in here. And this delphinium always, it really is amazing to me that this blue color exists naturally in nature, because it is absolutely spectacular. I'm going to take off these little bud branches from it. I'm going to put them off to the side because I might use them afterwards. I might use them to fill in some areas that I want to have like just a little something. And I'm actually going to cut the delphinium, and I'm going to cut off these last two flowers. I'm going to hold on to the flowers because I want this one to be a little bit shorter, but I like these little flowers here. You know, it's horrible to waste any precious little flowers. So I'm going to stick those in as well. So I have all of my delphinium where I want it to be. Again, I've saved these little things for the side. I might use them at the end. Are there any questions? Are we good?
We have one question coming in from Irene. This is one I think we get almost every month. Where do you recommend folks find flowers and greens and other supplies for floral arrangements? Especially Irene is here in the DC area.
So if you're in the DC area, I highly recommend Potomac Floral Wholesale. I don't think they're open to the public to go in right now, but you can order through their website and pick up. The other thing is, when I was just in Trader Joe's 2 days ago, they didn't have delphinium, but they had tons of tulips, and they also had ranunculus. They had seeded eucalyptus. So I think that also Trader Joe's and Whole Foods, especially if they're stores that are relatively well populated and their turnover is great, I think that their flowers that they get in every week are really, really quite good and amazing as well. And then, of course, you can always go the traditional route and go to a florist. And then in the summer months, it's always really nice to try and go and support any of the local flower farms that are in your area. Okay, so I'm gonna now move on to my ranunculus, which I think are so fun. And ranunculus are also a flower that will last quite a long time. So these ranunculus that I have are really they have a lot of character, and they have a lot of personality with how they are naturally just kind of doing their own thing. So I'm not going to fight with this. I'm going to understand that it's going this way. And so I'm going to use that to my advantage, and I'm going to use this curve as part of the arrangement. And I just absolutely love how it is naturally just kind of doing her own thing. A lot of these are really, really quite fun. Again, I'm going to take off, I actually might leave this one. I'm going to leave that little bud on. And again, I'm putting this one a little bit more towards the back so that I'm giving sort of a natural depth of the arrangement. So if you can look at it from, this is kind of a good perspective, but from the back, I'm moving this one sort of back this way so that when you look at it from the front, there's a little bit more depth. I am taking off these leaves though off of the ranunculus because they do tend to yellow a little bit faster. And again, I'm going to do that same thing where I have 5 stems of this, so I'm going to make this kind of triangular pattern with my ranunculus. So I have 4 here. I want to put something right here as my 5th element. think I'm going to leave those buds on here as well. I'm actually going to put her over this way now that I'm looking at it from the front.
Amy, we just got a question about whether Hillwood grows ranunculus and if there are any successful tips we can share. Sandra is down in Norfolk and has tried, but has not yet been successful with her ranunculus crops.
Neither have we. So you should not feel bad about that. Ranunculus love a cool, moist environment, which is something that we do not have here in the greater DC region. They do spectacular out in Oregon. So I would not, I think they also do really well up in some of the more New England areas because of the cooler growing season. But no, we have not been able to grow ranunculus here, so I can't give you any tips about that.
But you're in good company, Sandra.
So not to feel badly if your ranunculus aren't doing well, because it's a very difficult flower, and we are not able to get them to do anything here either. And we've even tried to like grow them in our greenhouses as well, and they're very finicky, and they're a little fussy. And you know, I understand why, because they're so beautiful, but it's probably one of those things that you just want to just go out and purchase them and not have to worry about growing them. And so after I have my ranunculus in, I'm going to go in with my tulips. And again, if you've never worked with tulips, one thing to know about tulips is that they continue to grow and they will change direction. So that this tulip that you see here today, tomorrow it might be shooting straight up, because what they're doing is they're continually growing and they're always looking for light, which I think also makes it kind of fun for the tulips. But for today's purpose, I'm going to use the natural shape and curve of the tulip, even though knowing tomorrow it probably will be something altogether different. So if you are really excited about what your tulips are doing today, make sure you take a picture of it today, because tomorrow, most likely, it is not going to look the same. And I noticed when I'm looking at the camera angle of this, that the white is really kind of like washing out a little bit. So I'm going to try and put, I'll put a background up behind it when I'm done, which will maybe kind of take down some of the brightness and the sharpness of the whites that are kind of washed out right now. And again, I'm going to follow that same principle with the tulips, as I'm going to sort of triangulate off of them. And see, I really love this shape and even like what this little leaf is doing. So I'm going to want to keep that angle. Put that in. So a lot of these tulips I am putting in a little bit lower, which is, I think, kind of fun. And this one is beautiful how she's curving up this way. So I'm going to let that dictate where I put her back here. The other thing that you can do with tulips, if you're just going to use it, you know, for the day, or you want to take a photograph of it, I wouldn't recommend doing this if you want it to last longer. But you can take the tulip and you can gently open up the petals. So I'm just going in and I'm just lightly opening them to push them down. And having your tulip kind of open like this is to me feels very, very kind of old school Dutch painting style. And I'm going to put her right here.
Amy, I love that you're already promoting some of our upcoming workshops because we do have a Dutch Masters floral workshop coming up.
Which I'm very excited about. It's one of my sort of favorite subject matters. But so again, I've used this as sort of a nice focal point, and I think that it's really kind of fun. Looking at this arrangement from the camera perspective, I do want to put something right here. So I'm going to go in with another tulip. And again, I'm looking for these tulips that have a natural curve with what they're already doing. I actually love this one, what she's doing up here. So I'm going to put her back here. I'm not going to put her down at the bottom.
And Amy, I'm just going to interject. We got a question in the chat here from Colleen, who was running a few minutes late. I'm going to apologize if that was due to a link issue, and thank you all again for making it to this program. Colleen asked what you use floral tape for.
So the floral tape is to hold down and secure the chicken wire in the container. So you can put your chicken wire in the container and it can feel like it's secure and it can feel like, oh, you know, it's packed down in there. And then you start putting your flowers in, and then all of a sudden the chicken wire surprise, as I like to call it, happens, and your chicken wire will like pop up. So we're trying to prevent obviously that from happening, which is what the tape, the floral tape does, is it just secures it down.
Excellent. And Maureen noticed that you're using a lot of odd numbers.
Yes, I typically always, when I am doing arranging, is I will use the rule of odd numbers, which is just a little bit more visually interesting to see things in an odd number. I say that, and then I also think that if you have 6 tulips, use all 6 tulips. You know, it's almost silly not to have the one left over, or you can always just put it into a bud vase if you want to do that, if you really want to kind of follow that same rule of odd numbers. But that's typically what I always do, is I always try and think in odd numbers. And again, that also helps with that idea of triangulating your pattern for your flowers.
Thank you.
And so instead of going in with one of these white tulips, I'm now going to use one of the parrot tulips that I have. And this is very bendy as is. So I think that'll be a fun element to kind of hang over or spill over the side of the container. You can see right there how she's just kind of spilled over. And I'm only going to use a couple of these, actually, because I feel like it's kind of getting full and I don't want it to feel crowded. Oops, that one just snapped too. So now I'm just going to use this one as a short one. And I'm going to put her in. Here. I have her tucked in there, and I want one more one more tulip to come right in there, and also just kind of be the last element that I put in. So again, for today, I like the way this is all shaping up with the direction of my tulips. I can't be sure if that will be the same case tomorrow or not. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to look at the bottom of my container, kind of give it a good once over. And I'm gonna go in and start to fill in any bald spots. Like I noticed back here, even though it is the back, I still don't really want any bald spots. Excuse me. I'm going to go in. And the other thing about going in with some more greens towards the end is it will also, again, secure a lot of your stems that you have in there already. I really love this piece of kale. Oops, I don't know if you can see that. Oh, it's nice and curly. So I'm going to use that again to go with the direction of the flowers. This gal is not cooperating. I'm going to cut this down a little bit. There we go. Just going to go in with a couple more pieces of the Italian ruscus. There. See a little bald spot there. And again, I can't talk enough about how much I really like using kale. So I'm going to look for a piece that has a little bit of character. Like this one, how it's kind of folded over. It's a nice little texture. And I'm going to make this, I'm going to treat this like it's a flower and not just as a green. So I want it to have a little bit of a spot of importance. So I'm going to put her up into the back here.
And Amy, Rosie just asked a great question about how to, again, extend the lives of floral arrangements. She asked if you ever take out flowers as they start to get stale or as they start to wilt. And if so, do you ever refresh them, add something new in?
Yes to all of that. So one of the best ways to, I think, prolong the life of your floral arrangement is to change out the water every couple of days. And especially if you're using chicken wire, it makes it very easy. You just bring your whole arrangement over to the sink, gently pour it. Oops, see, as you can see, it's easy to pour out the water and then refill it with new water. I would say that's going to help a lot. And then the other thing is, yeah, if like one of these tulips is, deciding that it doesn't want to behave anymore and it's like popped its little head off or whatever, you just pull that out. And again, because you're using the chicken wire, it's very easy to then go back in and replace anything that has started to either brown or is wilting, anything like that.
I know in previous workshops, you've also mentioned that for some arrangements, you can sub in something entirely different. In December, you subbed in some like glass Christmas balls on a stick or a pomegranate or something else that will last for a long time.
Right. And that's the thing is like you can always kind of get the general shape of this and then decide, okay, well, I have like a green apple on hand. I'll put that in there or, anything else that you really want to do. It can really be kind of fun and be creative about how it is that you prolong the life of your arrangement and also have it to like keep evolving as well. So I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but I am really happy with this little piece of kale here that's kind of curling around itself and doing its own thing. So I've really kind of put this in a spot of, a nice focal point of the arrangement. So I feel that I am done with my arrangement for today. I'm going to hold up a piece of fabric. so that you can then see the arrangement without any distraction. But okay. What questions do you guys have? And again, I do this a lot. I do this frequently. So I am rather quick in terms of how I'm putting in my flowers. I have the luxury of knowing what flowers I have and how they look and how I'm going to use them. So it is something that I can kind of whip out relatively quickly, but I don't expect everyone to be able to finish things as quickly as I do. And also, you might want to take some time. So even after we're done with the class today, you might put it where it's going to go, step back, have a cup of coffee, have some tea or whatever, and then come back to it and see, okay, you know what? I kind of want to rearrange this, or I'm going to, I don't know, tweak it a little bit. Or, you come back and you're like, no, I did an amazing job. I think it's fine as is. So again, it is one of those things that it is important to always sort of like look at your arrangement, step back from it, really kind of look and see what's going on. And like, even as I do that, I know that I can kind of look at this, move it around a little bit, and then, come back to your arrangement.
I love it, Amy. So far, we don't have too many questions pouring in. But Maureen asked if you always use bowls or other types of vessels like this, if there are other go-to shapes or sizes that you can recommend, because vases can sometimes be a little limiting.
Yes. So I have the luxury, obviously, of having a wholesale provider and being able to find, containers galore. But I really love a compote bowl, which is anything that's footed, because I do like to be able to have my arrangements kind of hang over the side a little bit. And I find that they're a little bit more old-timey looking, which I really also like as well. One of the things that I have found that makes a good substitute for a compote bowl are cereal bowls. Those work just as well. I think that if you go into any thrift stores, you can always find interesting things there. I think like candy dishes. I think of even old like pitchers or like water containers also work nicely. The one thing that you want to think about whenever you're selecting the container is what it's going to be for and where it's going to go. So if you are hosting a dinner party and you know that you want to have, several small little arrangements on your table, then you want to look for like a small container that's not going to be too big or overwhelming for the flowers. And so again, something like that, I always think immediately of like even like little jars or glass jars that you can then wash out that you had for like little jams or something like that. So I think that you can really, especially with using chicken wire, I think that you can really have an unlimited amount of options for containers. But if you are ever in New York City and you go into the flower district, there are amazing places to find like all kinds of containers and that are relatively inexpensive as well. And you can go online. One of the places that I always frequent is Accent Decor. I believe it's just wholesale, but you can sort of go onto the website, look through their things, and then always go to like a local flower shop and see if they happen to carry those containers as well.
And Amy, we got a question. You kind of spoke to this, that the chicken wire is the magic element here that makes a lot of these different containers great for floral arrangements. Marilyn asked where you get chicken wire and whether there's ever any concern about using it with a fine china or porcelain container.
So The chicken wire that I used is a galvanized chicken wire. That's why you see it's like that green color, so it doesn't rust as quickly. And that is something that you can get at a craft store or you can find at a hardware store. I found a large roll of it at I think it was like Logan Hardware in DuPont Circle. So I think that you can find chicken wire just about anywhere these days, like from Michael's to, I'm sure Amazon probably has it as well, to a local hardware store. Or if you're in the DC area, you can also find it at the Potomac Floral Wholesale. They sell it there as well. If you are like the container I use today is a glass, mercury glass bowl. But if you are concerned about scratching anything, if you want to use an heirloom container or something, I definitely would not use chicken wire. I just because that would be something that you have the possibility of scratching it, and then that would be heartbreaking. If you're trying to use different things other than chicken wire, because I strongly recommend to never use floral foam because of how bad it is for the environment. There's several other things that you can use. One of them is a Kensen or a flower frog, which is, you'll see, there's like, it looks like little pins all sticking up. Something like that is helpful to do with floral arrangements. You could always use your floral tape and you can crisscross the top of your
You
container
and
with tape.
Maureen are reading each other's minds. She just wrote that in the chat.
Yeah. And I think that there are a lot of different materials that you can use, and you can get creative too. I've also used, the bear grass that you can buy in the wholesale or whatever. I've used grass because it's a hard green. It's not like a soft green that's going to break down and muddy up your water. So you can use bear grass, and I've stuck like bunches of bear grass inside of a container and use that as a way to then hold stems. The other thing, I just happen to have some right here, but you can also use like curly willow or branches as something that you can also put into a container as well. I would just definitely avoid chicken wire into any kind of heirloom type scenario or like an antique that you don't want to mess up.
Susan asked if you're having trouble finding blue delphinium. I know we recommended irises as one of the things you could substitute. Are there other flowers that you would recommend?
So in terms of the color of delphinium, I would also say larkspur, but larkspur is going to be more in the purpley family, but it's very, very similar. It's actually in the same floral family as well. But if you're really looking for this like brilliant blue color, the only time I've ever seen this in other flowers that's natural is in hydrangea. There's like that, it's called shocking blue hydrangea, which is almost the exact same color as this. Again, the iris. The other thing is agapanthus is also a very bluish purple color. And then outside of that, Tweedia, which is, I think if you can't find delphinium, I don't think you're going to find Tweedia. It's that sort of milky stemmed flower that is more of like a light blue color. The other thing that you could use right now, because I see it a lot frequently, is hyacinth. You can find that blue hyacinth or like the purple hyacinth, I think would also be a good alternative.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I see we have, Virginia just asked if the ranunculus buds will open over the course of the next week or so.
Actually, so it might take a little bit longer than a week for them to open. So the other thing you can always do is then, when the bigger flower dies off, you can take the buds and you can snip them and put them into something else. But I've had a lot of the buds of the ranunculus here that I've been using bud as well. It's a much smaller flower, but it's still kind of fun.
Well, this has been so great, and I am so grateful for all of the questions that we've had. We did get a question earlier about how folks can access some of those local resources that we brainstormed for floral sources, and I will send those out to everyone who registered for the program later today. But I think it is time for us to turn to one of my favorite portions of this program, which is show and tell. For those who have not been working along at home or who have other obligations, thank you for spending this time with us so far. But I know we have some folks, and Althea, I see you popped on as soon as I said show and tell, so I'm going to assume you are ready. And I'm going to ask you to unmute, but what we like to do at this point is share the floor with those of you who have been creating beauty at home and show us a little bit about what you've done.
Well, I don't know that I was ready, but I'll show you. Let's see if I can. Is it gonna, can you guys see me?
Oh, yeah.
Let me see, Erin.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't.
Oh, that looks beautiful, Althea.
How does it look?
It's gorgeous.
Good.
It looks perfect there too with your blue pillows. I love it.
Yeah, I have a blue kitchen area that works well with this. So I love these colors of flowers. I wasn't sure where to stop, whether I put too much in. Can you see it well enough to tell?
So one of my theories since I've started working here at Hillwood is more is more. So I never think that there's ever too much of anything. So I think that, especially when you're getting supplies and you're picking up some of these buckets or whatever, I think like use the whole thing if you can fit it all in.
Okay. Sometimes I make a second arrangement, but this one I pretty much added most of them too. So
excellent. Yeah. I love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Kathy Byrd, you look like you have something beautiful there. I'm going to ask you to unmute and pop you up here.
Okay, I'm not sure it's beautiful. I had to do a lot. I did not get in time to get the prepackaged. So when I went out, there were a number of things I didn't have. So I didn't get kale. So I used ferns from my backyard.
Oh, wonderful.
And there was another flower they didn't have. So we substituted Queen Anne's lace.
Perfect.
And the fancy tulips, no. So yeah, more is more, I think. I just kept putting things in. And
no, I think that it looks gorgeous. I love it.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
And the substitutions that you made were perfect for it as well. So yeah.
I kept having to change heights though, because it got too big, right?
Yeah.
So kept having to pull it out. And I think the ferns were difficult to work with. Maybe you could talk about that. I think they clogged up. It was hard to put things in after I put the ferns in because they were so leafy that when I went to put a tulip in, I found it was hard to find a spot for it. So
the one thing I don't have any fern around me, but you can always sort of strip off those bottom foliage of the ferns. All right, I'm gonna snip a little bit of fern that's behind me. I won't tell the person who owns the fern that I'm doing that, but
no one will ever know when they watch this on YouTube.
It's a secret. So as you can see, like this, it's really kind of hard to see the stem. It's so thin, but this is the stem. So if I was using this and I wanted to, have more stem, I would then just pull off these fronds.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would go in to the arrangement only until like this part of it, so that I have this part that's naked in a sense. That's that way I can then put in things. I don't know if that makes sense or not. So like
yes,
I would use it like this entire length.
So if I took this one out and
you took off those bottom ones and then put it back in.
Yeah.
So that you have sort of this like gap in your fern that's like, this much gap in there that will then sort of open up space.
Of course, then I broke the stem, so that's why I'm not a professional like you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Julia, you have a beautiful view right there.
That is fantastic. I love it.
Oop.
No, it looks beautiful. And I love how
Thank
you let the ranunculus sort of do their own thing with their
Yep.
with their stems as well.
Good. It was fun as usual.
Good.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. It looks beautiful.
All right, let's see. I don't see anybody. Oh, there we go. Virginia, I'm going to add you. If you are working along at home and are ready to share, please feel free to turn on your camera. That is where I am looking in terms of who I'm going to ask next. Virginia, that looks gorgeous.
Well, I'm trying to position my camera without as much success as I would like. So let's see. No, I'm not entirely sure what the problem is. Maybe I'm too close. No.
Zoom photography is one of those skills I don't think any one of us would have expected to need to master this
No.
time 2 years ago.
I'm not an internet influencer, I can tell you that.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. There.
Sort of, but
Yeah.
anyway, I think I got the lines, and the one thing I did do, I got a lazy Susan, and I'm finding that helpful.
Yes, I think it's a really good prop.
So sorry I couldn't show you my arrangement, but it looks okay. Not as good as Amy's, but it looks okay.
Well, I can see from the one ranunculus, I really love how you let her do her thing. So I think that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's everybody I see with an arrangement on screen. Just want to, I know we mentioned earlier today that Amy was leading some advanced warning and some nuggets for those of you who are able to join us on Friday, March 18th. We will be seeing more tulips and working with still life inspired floral arrangements. I hope that you will all be able to join us. More information about that program is on our website already, as well as the materials lists actually for what we have planned this semester through May. So if you were concerned or maybe didn't quite get some of the Hillwood materials, those can go quickly. And please feel free to sign up for May's program already. Thank you again for spending a dreary Friday afternoon with us. It's been a lovely way to kick off our weekends and to celebrate Winter Wonderland.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.